Let's talk about how your identity affects your relationship. Everybody has a relational identity, and that determines how you behave, and so it determines your relationship. So we're going to dig into that today. I'm Stacy Rocklein. I am your relationship literacy coach, and I'm here to help you create, strengthen, and deepen your emotional connections. So let's dive right into this. You have more control here than you think. People tend to feel like they get put in a box by someone else, or they put themselves in a box, but I want to shake up that idea a little bit today. And let's just start by talking about relational identity. You have an identity. You think of yourself as a certain way. You believe some things about yourself. And that can actually change from place to place. Like there are subsets almost. So, there's Stacy, and then there's like what kind of mom Stacy is, and what kind of sister Stacy is, and then what kind of partner I am. And it's really how I would describe myself. It's no different than any other identity that you have. So let's say you would describe yourself as, a Christian woman, okay? That's an identity that you put on yourself, that you believe about yourself. And that identity is going to inform your behaviors, which we'll get to in just a second. Now, let's just say that an identity was put on you by somebody else. Someone else concluded that you're a certain way. If it's totally false, it shouldn't make any difference to you. All that really matters is when you pick up that identity and you decide, yes, that indeed does describe me, right? If somebody says to you like over and over and over, like, you're a prude, you're a prude, you're a prude, or you're a slut, you're a slut, you're a slut, or whatever. Eventually, you might just be like, that's whatever. I'm not going to pick that up. That's not who I am. As soon as you take it on as your own identity, though, that's what matters. That's what matters. And you're going to see your behaviors, and you're going to do certain things and avoid certain things looking through the lens of that identity. So we want to think about that when it comes to our relationships. Identity is intimately tied into what you do. So maybe there were a bunch of behaviors that added up over time, and that somebody decided that you are a certain way, right? Or you decided you are a certain way. Here's an example for me. When I have a reputation in my family, I'm the oldest of 5, of being bossy. Now, it's not like an unfair reputation. It's not like someone just made that up one day and it's not true. Really, it's like behaviors over time resulted in that identity that was given to me. Now, I choose to pick it up or not. For a long time, I did pick it up, and I was like, oh, I'm bossy. Well, that on one hand gave me permission to do bossy things because I was folding it into who I was. And, on the other hand, allowed me to push against it, you know what I mean? And be like, no, actually, in fact, I'm not, So we get to pick what to do. So let's say, think back to a time in your life when you were a certain way. This may or may not be true for you. You were a certain way, and that was your identity, but you've put behaviors in place over time, and it's changed, right? Let's say, for example, there was a time when you didn't really care about your health, okay? You didn't exercise, maybe you smoked. I used to be a smoker, horrible habit to quit. You drank too much, you ate terribly, you didn't sleep at all, all of the things, right? And then at some point you had a wake up call, and you just decided, I'm going to be somebody who exercises, and you turn your life around. Now that you have done all of those things, you're going to get to a point where you're like, my identity now is a healthy person. So even if it was something completely different in the past, you have over time, repeated action makes a big impact. Remember, you did things over and over and over that changed how you think about yourself, right? So your behaviors inform your identity, but then also your identity influences your behaviors. So when you start to think of yourself as a healthy person, you start to think like, what does a healthy person do, right? Well, a healthy person doesn't come home at night and drink a 6-pack of beer, right? A healthy person stops at the gym and eats a nice healthy meal. You start to do things based on your identity, right? Who you think you are. a Christian person does these things, right? A Buddhist person does these things. A monogamous person does these things. The identity that you've taken on informs your behaviors. So it's really important that you start thinking about yourself relationally from the identity point first, right? What we can end up doing is we can end up creating rules that we follow. And this is just, your brain wants to organize things and wants to create structure for better understanding. It's just the nature of the brain, and has enabled us to solve amazing problems and create amazing things. But, it can get in the way. But here what happens is your mind might create rules that you then go follow, right? Like I quit smoking. And so like coming home and having a cigarette after work is outside the rule I have created for myself. Like I didn't go write it down in a rule book somewhere, but it is a rule that I have now that I don't do that, right? Because of who I am. I'm a non-smoker, and now I have this identity. What would a non-smoker do? You get to choose your identity. And this can be like, it can feel like you can't. It can feel like other people have put you in boxes, but you can reinvent yourself whenever you want, okay? You're allowed. I'm allowed to not be bossy. You're allowed to not be whatever you want. And actually, some of the things that we are resisting are really good places to look at what identity we've taken on. I mean, it can be something that you aspire to. I want to be this way in a relationship. I want to be more open. I want to be more vulnerable. I want to be more exciting. I want to, be more adventurous. I don't know. Or maybe it's just like you see something that you do not like that you do, that you know is unhealthy, and that's where you focus, right? Where you go to like the polar opposite. So that's what you take on as your new identity. But you've got control about this. Like you can choose. You can choose who you want to be. And you want to think about what's healthy. What's healthy relationally for you to take on. What identity would pack a big impact for your relationship if you took on this identity? And then once you have the identity, what does that person do? Here are the steps that I invite you to think about today. 1, note your triggers. Like just pick something in your relationship. Okay, pick something that like you really want to be better at, or you really have always wanted to be good at, or is really causing a lot of problems for you. Okay, think about the identity that you want to have. What is that identity that you want to have? Focus on that. And now you want to think about your triggers, okay? So when a trigger comes in, and like know what they are, like very clearly know what they are. So the trigger comes in, you can feel it. You're going to go right to, what is my identity, right? I am open to feedback is mine, whatever yours is. It could be any number of things, right? And then what's my action? What is the action that person takes? Who is somebody who's open to feedback take? Who is someone who's adventurous? What is an action that someone who's adventurous takes? What is an action that someone who is like courageous enough to be vulnerable takes? What is an action that somebody who is rational and calm take? Whatever the identity you want to take on, what does that person do? So that you're catching your trigger, reminding yourself of your identity you're trying to establish, and then you're doing a behavior that will affect your belief in that identity, right? That is what I would invite you to think about today. Think about in your relationship who you want to be. Even if you're not in a relationship, who do you want to be in a relationship, and what does that person do, right?